Okay, it is 2 o'clock, and I want to go ahead and get started and be respectful of everyone's time. As you guys know, in this course, we do not require you to attend these go-to training sessions as a grade or anything like that. You're not penalized if you don't. So, with that being said, we really appreciate when you guys do come because honestly, it's more fun when y'all are here. We enjoy this. I don't know if Miss Brandy talked to you guys about it last week, but we do team teach, and we enjoy doing it like this because it allows us to engage with you and kind of get away from just staring at our screens all day. And honestly, this is what we look forward to every week. And as somebody might have said earlier, that they look forward to these types of sessions as well. So again, thank you for coming. Thank you for hanging out with me for the next 2 hours. I asked you guys earlier to, if when I'm going to shoot some videos at you guys, if you would possibly view them in Chrome. Go ahead and download it if you don't have it right now. Again, it's just for you to see some of the fun stuff I'm going to show you. But again, you're in go-to training, so a lot of the material you're still going to be able to participate in anyway. So let me take a step back. I want to welcome you officially to your second week of PYP. I hope that you guys are enjoying this course so far. My name is Jennifer Salzberg, and I'm going to be taking you through this journey today and this week. I'm the instructor for sections 7 and 20, so big shout out to my students, those of you that are here, but a big shout out again to everybody who took the time out of their day to join us. A little bit about me. I talk really fast when I'm excited about something, and I believe that kind of can translate to a lot of you. When you're super excited about stuff, you tend to talk really fast. So I'll try to slow it down a little bit. If I do talk a little fast or you want me to say something over, just feel free to type it in the chat box. We love participation. And again, it makes it more fun. So this is a topic that I love talking about a lot, which is brain development and positive psych, which is what we're going to talk about during our second hour, okay? But before we kind of get into our this week's stuff, I kind of want to talk to you guys a little bit about last week. How did you guys enjoy your very first week of PYP? You guys learned about play, what's considered play through the qualities of play. You guys identified the play personalities, which those are actually my favorite. And you looked into your play history. You know, you can see that who you were back then or what you enjoyed doing back then is still very much a part of you now. And you might have thought about this stuff before, but or it just never really occurred to you, right? Jesse says it was fun. You learned a lot. Brandon learned a lot. Played a lot too. I mean, seriously, you guys, what class is going to allow you that this is your assignment? This is your homework, is to take time, play, see how it impacts your life in all other areas. And that's kind of what this class is about. Ryan says it's a little overwhelming. I know it's a PYP class, but it really feels like English comp. Does it? Is it because of all the writing? Probably in the discussion board. Maybe just a little bit. But again, I will say this, that's the only thing we're asking you to really do. You know, you're not in creative presentation. We're not asking you to build slides or stacks or things like that. So if we're asking you to just kind of play and see how it impacts your life and then write a little bit or write as your major assignment for the week, might be a good trade-off, right? Maybe you can see it that way. But it might feel like a little bit of English comp, but just wait till you get to English comp. Not to scare y'all, but okay. So today we are going to talk about, or for this hour, we are going to talk about brain development and its relation to play. Okay, how it all kind of ties in, or why it's a little important to figure that out. And then the second hour, as Jacob is mentioning right now, we're going to talk about positive psychology, which is my absolute favorite thing to talk about. Absolute favorite thing. So I hope you guys are going to walk away with a lot of tools these next 2 hours and good ideas of how you can implement this stuff into your life. Okay, so before we kind of jump in, let me preface this lecture by asking you a very important question, and that is, why do you all think it's important to understand how the brain works? Why do you think it's important to understand how the brain works? To understand ourselves, yes, Jesse, so we can understand ourselves and others, exactly. I enjoy knowing things, to live a happy life. We can understand how or why we think, exactly. Yeah, honestly, it's basically, we need to learn how it works before we can learn to work it, right? And that was said by Dan Pink in A Whole New Mind, Why Right Brainers Will Rule the Future. And that's basically saying, like with anything, in order to take advantage of something, you need to learn how it works, right? That's another thing I'm going to do these next two lectures is basically I'm going to throw out a lot of name dropping, I guess you can say. I like to reference a lot of authors, scientists, researchers, things like that. Their books that they've read are written, that I have read. And so I'm going to throw a lot of those guys out to you. And if you want to put it down on your book list, feel free. Or if you need their name again, let me know. I always believe, as one of our guiding principles here at Full Sail, is, learn and grow always, correct? And so I always have a running book list because there's so many good things out there that you need to read or that you want to read. You just sometimes don't have the time to, or it's not a high priority right now because you need to be reading your school books, school stuff, whatever. But, if you have leisure time, always have this book list running of wonderful authors that you always want to get to. So when you do have time, or you find that you have 5 minutes or 10 minutes to start this book, it's right there to go to your book list. So Dan Pink is one of them. And I'm going to throw him out a lot. We talk a lot about him in next week, honestly. But what I love about the book that he wrote that I'm talking about, it's called, again, A Whole New Mind, Why Right Brainers Will Rule the Future. He wrote this book about a decade ago. Honestly, I didn't get a chance to read it till about 5 years ago. And the reason being is book list, is busy. But what I love about what he speaks of is that he talks about how right brainers will rule the future. And what's cool to see is that since I read it 5 years ago, you can kind of see how this stuff is really happening. The right brainers, which is technically individuals like yourselves, the creative, the innovative types, and how you, back then he was saying how you guys are all going to rule the future. And it's kind of what is happening. Companies are looking for individuals like you that are very innovative, creative, can think outside the box. And that is kind of why, if Miss Brandy touched on it last week, that's kind of why this class came to be. The creative, innovative types. That's you guys, and how you guys are killing it in the industries out there. No, that's what the companies are looking for. Okay, so first off, Amanda says she can't hear me. Can you guys hear me? I don't think I have my mute on. Okay. Maybe it just might be Amanda's connection. Okay. All right. Well, first off, I don't want you to think that this is going to be some boring biology lesson, all right? Though I find the brain to be, I heard a little feedback right there, so let me just make sure everyone's on mute. Okay. Though I find the brain to be fascinating and I leisurely read about it when I can, I'm far from being an expert on it, okay? As you guys can imagine, the brain is so complex that researchers are continually discovering new things about it all the time, okay? So with that being said, today we're going to review just a little bit about brain biology, just simple stuff, take with you some brain basics, stuff that will help you better understand yourself as well as others. We're going to talk about a little bit about the triune brain theory, which breaks down that evolutionary aspect of the brain biology. Not too much detail, but just basic stuff. And then we're going to explore a little bit about how the brain changes over time, how play interacts with the brain and how it changes. So something that's called neuroplasticity, and that really goes back to that nature versus nurture debate, okay? Also, throughout session, I'm going to throw out some very practical brain rules that will help you with your own experience of the brain as we go through the material today. As your reading mentioned last week, there are 12 brain rules that are scattered throughout your activities this month. These brain rules are actually from the work of Dr. John Medina. Another name drop. He's a brilliant molecular biologist who has spent his entire career studying the brain. And what I love about his rules and what I love about his book is that he presents the science behind it. And that's a big one for me. He presents the science behind it and what scientists know for sure how the brains work. Okay, how the brain works, not brains, how the brain works, and offers ideas of how to implement them into our daily lives. So a lot of the times you hear how they speculate, this could happen, this might be the cause of this could do this, if you exercise, all those what ifs, could haves, whatever. That's what I love about this book is that these are rules for sure that they have researched and implemented and things like that will help you and your brain. And that's what I love about it. And then again, in his book, he talks about ways to implement those things. So I believe if you kind of did your reading already, I know it's only day 2 of week 2, This week we talk about music. So I mean, I'm sure you guys just know how music just impacts your well-being already, but there's brain science behind that. Okay, so we talk about music, and then we talk about survival in the reading as well. And I'm going to cover again a few of these brain rules throughout lecture today, so you'll see what I mean as we go through it. Okay, so again, you guys know there's so many benefits to just music. But what's fascinating, if you're a brain nerd like me, or you might end up being one after this lecture, you get to see how it impacts your circuitry in your brain and all that good stuff. Okay, so as I was mentioning, hopefully by the end of session today, you'll have a newfound appreciation for the brain or are interested in learning more about it. And if so, at the end, I'll give you additional information, resources that you can use to further your knowledge or add to that running book list. Okay? All right, let's go ahead and do this. Brain rule number 1, our very first brain rule: exercise boosts brain power. Exercise has a lot of benefits, and we always hear how exercise is good for your heart, good for your physical health, but it's good for your brain, okay? So exercise in whatever form we can find it can boost your brain power, okay? This is scientifically true. So exercise has tons and tons of benefits, all right? So let's go ahead and take a brain break, and we're going to do an exercise together. Yay! So I've searched far and wide to find an exercise that we can all do if we're sitting at our desks, on the couch, or wherever you might be right now and you don't have a lot of room. Okay, so in your materials section on your GoToTraining panel, there's a drop down. I want you guys to click on Boost Your Brain. It's about a minute long. And let me know when you guys are done. All right, I know a few of you are still doing the activity, but moment of honesty, who actually did the exercises with Mr. Jack LaLanne? I see a few of you did. Thank you for humoring me and for participating. Josie said he tried, or she tried. I'm not sure. Some of you, I think Sarah said she's at work, so she can't watch these videos right now. That's okay. These are all going to go up with the archive, and you guys can do it later on. But basically, it was a video of you doing facial exercises with Mr. Jack LaLanne, right? Ricky was laughing so hard he couldn't complete it. It's even better if you're around someone right now, or if you're in public. I've had a few students sometimes when they're just logging in at their break room at work, they're at their cubicle, they could be at Starbucks or at Barnes & Noble, somewhere in a public place, which is, I remember one person told me last month that his kid was looking at him like he was strange, like his daughter. So anyway, it's even better if you guys are in public. So basically, I wanted to give you a quick way that you can all exercise, which you guys just did. Facial exercises count, and boost your brain power, which you did, at the comfort of your own desk, cubicle, wherever you are right now without breaking anything. Lauren's at a coffee shop. That's awesome. You know, there's people watching in there. They're probably staring at you like, what is that girl doing? That's awesome. All right, so let me give you a little background info on Jack LaLanne if you don't know who he is. He was basically this American fitness, exercise, nutritional expert, motivational speaker guy who is actually sometimes called the godfather of fitness and basically our very first fitness superhero. 2011, he passed away at the age of 96 It was respiratory failure due to pneumonia. He was sick for a week and didn't want to see a doctor, but it was reported that he was still performing his daily workout routine the day before he died. And as you can see from the video, those were in his younger years. He was a very strapping young man, right? So he worked out every day, very physically fit. If you Google him, he looked fantastic, okay? Even in his later years, if you were to Google him. And it wasn't so much about his physical appearance, but how physically fit he was, but it was also about how mentally sharp he was. Okay, obviously you guys can see that he was very physically fit. He worked out all the time, but he was mentally sharp, and that's the kicker here. If you also Google him, there is probably a video or an interview will come up. I believe it's from the Today Show. It's been a while since I've seen it, but I think he's celebrating his 70th birthday on the Today Show, and they're interviewing him because not only is he 70, and not only because he's Jack LaLanne, but he actually wrote another book, and I think that's what he's promoting the book. But if you listen to the interview, you can see just how mentally sharp he was and mentally how on point he was. And if many of you in the room right now, you might know individuals, relatives who are older, and they just might not all be as sharp, right? I mean, we already know physical benefits of what working out can do for you and help you out in your later years. But again, mental sharpness, boost your brain power. That's what exercise can do for you. Fun fact, those of you who love trivia, fun fact for the day is that the jumping jack was actually named after him. A lot of the assisted exercise equipment that you might find in your local gym or in your apartment gym, like the leg extension, all those things where you sit and it has the plates. Some of the assisted exercise equipment that you'll find, he helped develop those. So those are your fun facts for today. So if you're at an establishment for Tuesday night trivia and a question comes up for Mr. Jack LaLanne and a gift card is up for grabs for that establishment, hopefully your team will win. I love fun facts. I used to play Tuesday night trivia as well. Just so happened to be Tuesday. But anyway, okay, before I go on my tangent, that's also what happens with me. Not only do I talk fast when I'm super excited, but again, just with anything that you're super passionate about, you can go on tangents and talk a lot about anything, right? So I have a little outline here that keeps me on point. Okay, so let's just keep going. That's awesome, Courtney. My father just turned 70 last month, so he looks amazing. He works out, not every day, but he's still pretty sharp. So we're going to talk a lot about this later on in terms of mental sharpness, okay? So keep that in mind when I ask you to think about individuals in your own life that are aging and how you can have your own mental sharpness when you get to a certain age, okay? All right, brain rule number 2. Our brains have changed over time. So the triune brain theory, which was developed by Paul MacLean, this theory is based on the premise that over time, our brain has evolved into 3 different brains. So this evolutionary development of the brain shows that it was actually built or developed from the bottom up. And I'm going to show you what I mean by that. And those 3 brains are basically the reptilian brain, the limbic system, and the neocortex. And I'm going to explain a little bit about each one, but a useful metaphor when thinking about brain development, got any gamers in here or people who like to play video games? A useful metaphor when thinking about brain development would be that you can view these different parts I'm going to talk about as maybe your operating systems, okay? Or maybe they're your gaming consoles. So they basically start out these really simple, it basically started really simple and then they evolved into the fantastic machines that we have today, okay? And when I mean basic, simple machines, and I'll mention that right now when we talk about the first, which is the reptilian brain. So this might be your very first gaming system. I'm gonna date myself a little bit, but this might be your NES, your Commodore 64, your Super Nintendo, or whatever that might be, okay? So this brain is responsible for all of your involuntary things or automatic behaviors such as breathing, heart rate, balance, digestion, all those things that you don't need to think about to occur, but that they need to happen in order for you to survive, right? So it's the most primitive and it controls those type of functions, Okay, you don't need to think about digesting your food. You don't need to take the time and consciously think, oh my goodness, I need to breathe right now. It just does it on its own, and that's what the reptilian brain's about. Okay, it consists of the cerebellum and the brainstem. The next to evolve was the limbic system, all right, also known as the feeling brain. So it's responsible for generating our emotions, especially fear and aggression, our pleasure centers, our pain centers. It's also responsible for memory storage and recall. So when you attach a memory with an emotion, you increase the likelihood of future recall. Okay, so sometimes we have very specific triggers along with our senses that can aid in memory formation and recall. So maybe you have an old box of photos, and when you take a look at them, you feel a rush of emotions, and it just takes you back to that time. Or how about going back to the house that you grew up in, and it just has this smell, or maybe your grandparents' house, and it triggers an emotional memory, right? A happy time when you used to bake with your mom, or that funny time you played a prank on your sister, the smell of grease or oil, when you did some work in the garage with your dad, uncle, grandpa, stuff like that. Okay? Music, right? Music and songs have a way of doing that as well. I bet you guys have one of your favorite songs, your very first concert, your summer song, the song you got married to, things like that. When you attach a memory with an emotion, the likelihood that you'll recall it is increased significantly. Right? So this is what the limbic system is all about. It contains our emotions, our memories, seeking pleasure, avoiding pain, stuff like that. Okay? Finally, we have the neocortex, and this is at the highest level. We started out with the reptilian brain and that lower level of functioning, and then to the limbic system that houses our emotions. The neocortex is the most advanced of the triune brain theory, and this is the part that really makes us human. Okay? This is where higher level of functioning takes place: consciousness, judgment, abstract thought, decision making, problem solving, creativity, all that good stuff. So, if you were to look at a picture of a brain, we traditionally will see the two hemispheres and the four lobes of the brain. So let me go back to that picture I showed you guys earlier. Okay, so even though this is a cross section of the brain, down here, this is the brainstem, this is the cerebellum, this is your reptilian brain. This was the first to evolve. Digestion, heart rate, breathing, all those automatic behaviors, okay? Right here in the center, this is your limbic system. Right in here houses memories, recall, pleasure centers, pain centers, stuff like that. All this pink spongy stuff, which is typically what you see when you see an image of the brain, this pink spongy stuff, which is technically called gray matter, this is your neocortex. This is the part that really makes you human. This is where, again, judgment, abstract thought, decision making, creativity, all that stuff happens in this pink spongy stuff in different areas. So I'm trying really hard not to go on tangents right now, you guys. But right here in the front, this is where your forehead is. This is where, drawing a blank right now, but this is your prefrontal cortex, and this is where decision making occurs right here. And I know that some of you have probably heard or might even experienced, unfortunately, that if you have a head injury, certain areas of the brain, depending on where you injured your head, it could affect the certain functions, correct? So, for example, if you were to injure the front of your head, it could affect decision making, since I just mentioned that that's where that takes place. Again, it's not all isolated in a certain area. It can move across your brain, but that's usually just the main area right there. Again, not to get too tangent and not to get too technical with you guys, but I just want to give you that tidbit of information. Okay, so let's go ahead and do a brain biology review. Wait, what did Nicholas say? People who smash things on their heads aren't very smart. They might have injured the certain part, and when you smash things in the front of your forehead, maybe that might have impacted some decision making. Another little tidbit, let me tell you this I do know. When we were going through grad school, they teach us this stuff, and the very front of your brain, the prefrontal cortex, like I was mentioning, and I told you one of the main functions of that is decision making is housed. That part does not fully develop until you're about early 20s. So, with that being said, just think about your adolescent years when your decision making or your judgment just was not there completely, right? And your parents always looked at you like, what is wrong with you? Why did you make those decisions? And again, it's because biologically, that wasn't all developed yet. I'm roughly saying early 20s. I believe the cap is 25, but again, it's been some years since I've um, actually saw that study. But it's around that time. So just imagine. So if you have kids and they're just not making the best decisions, it could be because all that's not developed yet. Just saying. Not that it's an excuse, but it could be a reason. So anyway, okay. So let's go. We're going to do a little brain biology review. We're going to take another brain break. Okay. Again, I want you guys to go to your materials section on your control panel where I have all the video links I'm going to show you today. And I want you guys to click on Brainstem, Brainstem. I believe there is a commercial before it. And let me know when you guys are done. All right, I guess you guys are all done watching it now. I'm glad you guys enjoyed that. I know I'm dating myself. I'm going to do that a lot this session, seriously. And now you guys are going to have the brain stuck in your head all day, right? Andy, they might have become neuroscientists because of this song. I'm just saying. I'm just kidding. It's possible. So, because Pinky and the Brain and the Animaniacs, that shaped that entire generation, right? No, I'm kidding. All right, so make sure you guys bookmark that if you guys need a quick review, and you guys can view it whenever you want to. So, one thing I do want to say is I'm glad that you guys know what it is, that I'm in a room filled with individuals that are familiar with that, so I don't feel super alone. I'm kidding. Okay. So, we've explored a little bit about brain biology, right? With the triune brain theory and the evolutionary aspects of the brain, how it has evolved over time from something instinctual, right, to something emotional, to something higher level. So, if our brains have evolved over time, why do you think we still play? I know we probably touched on it a little bit last week of why play is important. Sometimes, though, we might have think as play as something that should have been weeded out, right? Like Courtney says, play is necessary. If it was useless, if it had no purpose, it might have. But obviously, we still do it, and obviously, it's necessary. We just have to find value in it, and a lot of people don't. As well, as you're an adult, right? Don't value it as much. So, but even when it comes to the biological aspects, there are many, many benefits to us still playing, right? After many, many years. So what you guys are looking at right now, these are just clips from PYP campus. When you're on campus, we used to have the project where they had to present we put them into groups at the beginning of the month, and then at the end of the month, they had a final project where they had to present to us, the class, one of the concepts or a concept that they learned throughout the month. So, for example, you guys just went through week 1, and let's just say you guys decided to teach the class the play personalities, put on a skit, do whatever you want, but you basically taught us the play personalities, and that's what's going on right here in front of you. So I just wanted to give you a little glimpse into what campus life could be like for many of your classes. Okay. Brain rule, the next brain rule, and that is what we do and learn in life can actually physically change your brain. So this is a newer kind of area when it comes to the world of neuroscience, okay? We used to think of our brains were hardwired, right, after a certain age. You know that old phrase, you can't teach an old dog new tricks. How many times have somebody said that to us, or we might have even said it? But what we're finding out more and more is that our brain is a little more plastic than we think, okay? It still can be molded and shaped, so to speak, and this is what's called neuroplasticity. We have this idea that at a certain point, we are who we are, we're never going to change, and that's not necessarily true. Your brain has the ability to reorganize itself by forming new neural pathways to help it better adapt to its environment. So every time you learn a new task, your brain changes its neural circuitry based on that new knowledge. So when you repeat these tasks, your brain can become more efficient and better at performing those tasks. Okay, so what comes to mind? What comes to your mind when I say that? What is something you've become more efficient at or better at performing recently? It could be something small. It doesn't have to be huge or grand or anything like that. Spencer. Playing music, guitar, yes. Schoolwork, playing games, reading, music production, time management, excellent. Drawing, right? If you're just trying to perfect a certain part of it, right? Talking to crowd, yes. Call it, yes. I mean, I'm sure this is not easy. Trying to fit everything all in one time, especially in an accelerated program like you guys were all in. Right. One thing, one example I like to give is I like to cook. I'm not super great at it, but I like to cook. Prepping and cutting vegetables or the ingredients have been something I've gotten pretty good at. Right. I can easily dice an onion now in the little squares in the dices that it's supposed to be, and not just a rough chop, like, so I'm getting good at that. Another example I like to give where I've seen it firsthand is painting, and I'm not talking about painting canvas. I always painting on a canvas or being all artistic. I'm talking about painting a plain wall. So painting a wall, and what I mean by that is when you're cutting or edging, I can do one brush stroke without touching the ceiling, right? Or touching the baseboards. So that's a little efficiency right there. I've gotten better at that. So that's what you guys have seen. So each time you guys have engaged in these certain tasks, right? You've improved a little bit each time, and you've literally reshaped your brain. All right, I know that again, I'm saying this, it's only week 2 and it's only day 2, but there is a video that I usually show at this point, but it's also in your reading. It's on neuroplasticity. It's about 2 minutes long. Do you want me to give you the time right now to watch it so then you don't have to watch it later on? Plus, she explains neuroplasticity beautifully with her awesome voice. Okay, I love her voice. So, in your materials section, I would like you guys to go to neuroplasticity. It's a video that she discusses, she explains it well. And so go ahead and click on that and let me know when you guys are done. All right. So, told you her voice is amazing. So, so neuroplasticity, it's a very interesting field, right? And they're still doing more and more research about it. But the truth is that we can train our brain, right? So there was a study that was conducted at Harvard Medical School where subjects were instructed to practice playing the piano, a simple finger exercise every day for 2 hours. And if you've ever learned to play the piano, and I heard guitar is the same, I know somebody in here is practicing their guitar. If you ever learn to play the piano, it's not very exciting at first, right? You're just doing scales over and over again. Your fingers are getting used to the movements. So they had them do this, right? Every day for 2 hours, just a 5-finger scale. Fun stuff. After each practice session, though, they were hooked up to this machine that's able to measure brain function in the different areas of the brain. And what they found was that just after 1 week of practice, the area of the brain that's devoted to finger movements grew and took over a larger part of the brain. And as they put it in the article, it just took over like dandelions in a suburban lawn. So pretty amazing stuff, right? But actually, around this time, it really wasn't a big deal or a big surprise to anybody, right? Everyone's like, oh, no big deal, Harvard, just because you're Harvard. No big deal, because a lot of other universities, a lot of other researchers were kind of coming up with the same results, okay, after they're doing all these types of tests and things like that. So what these other universities and individuals and research groups were finding was that, and Harvard, was that there was already a growing number of discoveries that showed that the greater use of a certain muscle causes the area of the brain responsible for its movement to grow. Okay, so conceptually that makes sense, right? Using more and more of a muscle, it grows physically, so one would think that the area of the brain that's responsible for that movement would grow as well, correct? Yeah. So that's what they're like, no big deal, Harvard. So they're just like, fine. Harvard's like, fine, whatever. We're gonna kick it up a notch, okay? So they took it a step further. They took a second group of subjects, and instead of instructing them to physically practice the piano exercise, they only had them think about it. So they played the piano in their head, holding their hands still, and just imagined how they would have moved their fingers across the keys every day for 2 hours, just sitting there thinking about it. Again, super fun stuff. They also had their brain function measured after each practice session, and what's amazing is that they found the same amount of physical growth in the brain. Isn't that crazy? So the ability of simply thinking about something can change the physical structure and function of your brain. And that's why Harvard's like, I'm Harvard. So they dropped the mic on that one. So pretty interesting stuff. Another recent study, it was a trial actually, that was funded by the NIH, the National Institutes of Health, and they wanted to basically see if the benefits of cognitive training for older adults could last as long as 10 years. So do you guys know what I mean when I say cognitive training? Speed of processing, memory, reasoning, stuff like that. Back in the day, if you had a DS, it's kind of like, I used to play Brain Age a lot. Thought that was fun. I don't know why I think of Frogger. I just think of reaction times and stuff like that. So that's what kind of like cognitive cognitive training is, okay? So the NIH wanted to do a trial to see if they put individuals through cognitive training, if those results or it would impact them for 10 years, okay? Okay, so let me tell you a little bit about this trial and what happened. So again, the training aimed at boosting older adults' skills at memory, reasoning, and speed of processing to see if it slowed their cognitive decline, because these are older adults. If it slowed their cognitive decline and helped these participants maintain functioning in their daily living tasks over a decade. So what that all means is basically as these people are aging, and again, you might have individuals in your life where you might have seen this or experienced this, is that they might not perform certain tasks or struggle with certain tasks as they get older, right? Daily living tasks, simple things. So they wanted to see if they put these individuals through cognitive training, if it would help slow down that cognitive decline that they might experience 10 years later, okay? So They took about 3,000 participants ages 64 to 94 from all educational, socioeconomic, racial, and ethnic groups. Okay? They put these individuals through 10 one-hour sessions of brain training over the course of 5 to 6 weeks. Okay? And then they left them alone. 65 years old and 94 years old. Put them through 10 hours. That's it. Over the course of a month. Let's say a month and a half. Okay? And then they left them alone. Totally just disappeared from their lives. And then they followed up with them 10 years later. 10 years later. They found was that there was significantly less difficulty performing daily living skills than did the untrained participants. So it worked. So basically just participating in 10 hours of cognitive training or brain training 10 years ago significantly made a difference in their lives as they age. Because now these 65-year-olds are 75, 94-year-olds are hopefully 104. So again, just imagine what a little bit of cognitive training or brain training can do for you. Even if you did it, that's what I encourage you guys to do. Even if you did it while you're waiting for transportation, sitting in a doctor's office, it doesn't always have to be something that's labeled brain training. It could just be anything that's, again, helps you with memory, helps you with reasoning, speed of processing. And a lot of the video games that are out there today, they do those things, right? Especially those that you need to memorize maps. You need a quick reaction time. I guess that's probably why I thought of Frogger. Sudoku does that. Chess does that. A lot of things. It doesn't necessarily have to be sold as a brain training activity, right? It could be on your app, on your phone. But again, non-technological things like a good old crossword or a good old Sudoku book, stuff like that. I love Sudoku. So see if that's something that you can want to try to start implementing. 5 minutes a day. These individuals did it for 1 hour. That's it. 1 hour 10 times for a month and a half. That's not a lot of time, so that you can carve out like 5 minutes, especially when you're waiting somewhere, waiting for, again, transportation, somebody get ready, it's time to go, kind of things like anything, restaurant, whatever you're doing, that stuff like that. Okay? And that kind of goes back to what we mentioned earlier when we were talking about Jack LaLanne. You know, mental sharpness. What are you guys going to do to hopefully be mentally sharp when you get a little older? All right? Okay. So both of these studies that I talked about, the one from Harvard and the one from NIH, I'm including both of these into your references. It's going to go out with the archive. So if you want to do the full read on these studies, you can. They're quick reads. They didn't do a lot. It's not like a whole journal article, but they're really quick reads, and I'll provide that for you guys later on. All right. Okay, so basically, it goes back to the myth here that we can't change. We are who we are, and you can't teach an old dog new tricks. Whether you've heard someone tell you this before, or you might even said it yourself. But the truth is that we can teach an old dog new tricks, right? Somebody said that earlier. And that we can have real, lasting physiological change, right, down to the biology of our brain. So, let me ask you guys this. Have you ever successfully broken a bad habit? Or, in the light of positive psychology this week, have you started a positive habit? Congratulations, Jacob and Brandon. That's amazing. Good for you guys. I can understand how difficult that is. So you guys have all started one, or you've stopped a negative one and started a positive habit, correct? You guys are all here. You're in school. So you're doing your weekly plans. Those are positive things, right? Ashley broke a bad habit. Yes. Yes, yes, yes. So, we can definitely see that these types of changes can happen over time. And it does. It does take a lot of time. As we're going to learn, how many days does it take to start a habit or instill a habit? Exactly. It's mixed reviews. It's mixed out there, but I go with 21. Some people say 28. But in this class, and I believe we do say it in this class, it's referenced by one of the famous authors that we talk about, researchers. It's 21. Yeah. So for those of you in my class, I'm going to talk about something on day 21 when we get there. You'll see. Okay. So I came across this and I thought it was perfect to mention during this time. And it's one of my favorite. Henry David Thoreau. His stuff is one of my is my favorite. So, as a single footstep will not make a path on the earth, so a single thought will not make a pathway in the mind. To make a deep physical path, we walk again and again. To make a deep mental path, we must think over and over the kinds of thoughts we wish to dominate our lives. So I think that follows up. It's appropriate for what we've been talking about lately. Ryan asked 21 to quit or to form one. Both. Because if you quit one, you formed a new one, basically. Yeah, exactly, Courtney. It's both. You stopped one or you started one. And by stopping something, you kind of made a routine for the past 21 days of how to stop what it was that you wanted to quit. So, yeah. Not saying one is harder than the other, starting or stopping or quitting or gaining, but it's still 21 days. It's how you look at stuff. So, we're going to talk about that next hour. So, all right. What time is it? Perfect. All right. I want to be respectful of your time. So, another brain rule. Let's keep going on with brain rules, which I think falls in an appropriate time to share with you as we're getting to the close of this topic, and that is that we don't pay attention to boring things, right? It's as simple as that. So, let's go ahead and take another brain break. I'm going to age myself or date myself again with this one. Y'all know what a conjunction is. So let's all find out together. Go to your materials section and click on conjunction junction and let me know when you guys are done. All right. I hope that brought back some fond memories for some of you. Not everybody liked it, or, in general, didn't really wasn't a fan of Schoolhouse Rock growing up. But if you've never seen that before, again, I'm dating myself. If you've never seen that before, that was from Schoolhouse Rock. as Nicholas says, it basically was an educational short, right? They would play these little short educational cartoons in between your Saturday morning cartoons, or sometimes you might have seen it at school. They might have played it at school. But for most of us, we would see it between our Saturday morning cartoons, right? You get your big bowl of Crunch Berries and sit right up next to the TV and you'd watch Schoolhouse Rock. So the reason I'm bringing this all up is because what was genius about this whole thing was that they tricked you into learning. Okay, I know, right? I told you. I'm dating myself a lot. Okay, so what was genius about this whole thing is that they tricked you into learning and on a Saturday morning. Those horrible, horrible Schoolhouse Rock people, right? So what does this have to do with the brain? Why am I showing you this stuff? What does this have to do with memory and learning? Well, Schoolhouse Rock actually had a team of educational psychologists working for them. A lot of PBS shows, such as Sesame Street, had these educational psychologists working on this stuff since day one. I'm not talking about recently, because of all this brain science that's been coming out. I mean, they've been doing this since we were kids because they really knew how the brain develops and what really makes learning stick. Brain rule. We don't pay attention to boring things, remember? So, when we talk about play, one of the big things is that it's fun, right? Well, when we're truly learning something the best way, it should feel like fun. Because what happens is that it's activating multiple parts of the brain, okay? And what I mean by this is another brain rule, and that is the more senses we can integrate into our learning, the better chance we have of holding on to that information, okay? And the Schoolhouse Rock clip you guys just watched has fun visuals, has a chubby conductor, has a song to it, rhythms, got melody, and the information, right? The actual learning is just kind of snuck right in there. So this is a great example what we want to think about how to truly internalize and hold on to information. Look to Schoolhouse Rock. That's the way to do it. Or even Pinky and the Brain. And again, I'm showing you all this stuff. I know at the beginning it was all fun and games because it is. I mean, I enjoy this stuff. And at the same time, you haven't seen this stuff in decades. But you can remember it, right? Are you able to remember what was on the radio yesterday at noon? Unless it was your absolute favorite song, or what you were listening to around noon. So, yeah. But you can remember this stuff as if it was yesterday. Again, same thing with the limbic system. You attach a memory with emotion. You remember and you can recall stuff. It's your fascinating brain at work, right in front of you. Okay. Ryan, you just made me laugh. I'm still I don't want to say a new mom, but I mean, I have a wonderful 18-month-old at home. Not quite into that song, but I know what that song is, and that's hilarious. So, anyway. Oh, the songs that they love, right? So I guess that's what you were listening to yesterday. I'm not quite there yet, thank goodness. He just listens to anything right now. Okay. He'll pick a favorite and then we'll obsessively listen to it, right? So that's awesome, Lauren. Yeah, mine just turned 18 earlier this month. On the 3rd, I think. Okay, so anyway. Again, you guys are going to make me go on tangents because I want to tell you something right now, but I'm not. I got to keep us on track here. So, okay. We're going to play a game, all right? We're going to do another brain break, and we're going to play a game. You guys got to keep me on track. It's almost 3 o'clock. Okay. What I want you guys to do is I want you guys to look at this number, okay? Just look at it. Don't write it down. Look at it for about 10 to 15 seconds and see if you guys can memorize it. And when I take it off the screen, you guys can either write it in the chat box if you want to, okay? All right. Can you guys write it down? Or are you guys still talking about songs? Okay. Tyler got it. Ricky got it. Brian, Courtney, Amanda. Yay! Awesome. Fantastic. I wish I could say absolute genius room. Let's call it a day. But the truth is that we touched on something called cognitive load theory. I'm sure you guys have heard of the concept, maybe not the term before. It's not important that you remember that, but unless you want fun facts for the day, or it's a trivia question, then cognitive load theory. And that is that we can hold about 7 pieces of information in our short-term memory. You guys have heard that before, right? Cognitive load theory. I do too, Courtney. So, to most of us, it kind of just looks like a phone number, right? You might repeat it over and over again until it was removed from the screen. 591-7413, 591-7413, and you're good, right? Easy peasy. Well, let's try something more challenging. I'm going to let you guys look at this and see if you guys can memorize it. Five more seconds. Okay, see if you can write it down. I love that you guys are even saying, nope, not even going to try that. That's awesome. I think some of you guys got it. That's awesome. Wow. All right, there it is. You guys are funny. All right, so did you guys feel the difference from looking at the first number to looking at this number? Did you feel a little bit of tightness? Maybe some anxiety when the number popped up? Just a little bit. Nothing like too dramatic or nothing too, yeah, just a little bit. Just a slight, maybe, like a little pull. Yeah. What's happening in a physiological way is that you're experiencing that cognitive load. You have that trigger reaction that it's going to be impossible for you to memorize that number. Okay? So some of you mentioned some ways around this, and you're able to memorize it by breaking it up into different pieces or segments, right? How many of you guys have done that? 3 numbers at a time, 4 numbers at a time. Right, like it was your account. And this technique is actually called chunking. So by doing this 3 to 4 number chunking technique, you're kind of cheating that cognitive load, and you're treating each chunk as one piece of information. And that's kind of why they do it with credit card numbers, phone numbers, social security numbers. Kind of like that. Okay, if you sing a song, how many of you guys did that? Made a rhythm to it, put a beat to it? Those are some great techniques as well. All right, so I want to share a technique with you that hopefully is a big word, you can carry forward. And since you are also creative, I believe you might find this technique fun and useful, and it's called story time. Okay, so let's take a look at another number, this one. And you look at this and you experience that cognitive load, right? Like, oh no, there's no way I'm going to memorize this number, right? So what we can do is we can create a story to help us. Okay, so we look at this number and the story starts with once upon a time. So, once upon a time, there were 7 18-year-olds. These 7 18-year-olds were out for the day heading to the court to play basketball. When they got there, there was a group of 35-year-olds taking up the court. Those 35-year-olds? So the 7 18-year-olds said to the 35-year-olds, let's be fair, we're going to play you guys for the court. Winner takes it. So the 7 18-year-olds play the 35-year-olds. It was an amazing game of basketball. Final score was 28-20. 28-20. Guess who won the game? Who won the game? The 35-year-olds won the game. You think you can write the number down? Francisco. I think you guys all got it. Yay! I think you got, yeah. Was that helpful? I've heard it of both. That's fantastic. So do y'all see what I did there? For those of you who might not have, it might not have been helpful. So every number in my story was a sequence of the number sequence. 7, 18, 35, 28-20 was a score. Won the game. The 35-year-olds won the game. It's okay, Ricky. 1 and 1. I know. Pretty clever, right? Okay. I'm glad that was helpful, because one time it broke my heart when somebody said, it dawned on me when somebody said that was super confusing. And it never dawned on me that it would have been. And I appreciate that student's enlightenment. And again, it isn't about me telling you that this is the best formula for learning and that if you do it every time, it's going to work, right? But what's important to understand is that there are different techniques that we can use to help us internalize information because it's really all about reaching that long-term memory, right? Short-term is easy. And that's the point. It's like you guys can remember short things, or it doesn't seem so daunting once you find a way to make it fun and make it playful. So, who has ever had a cram session before? I know I have. Where you go to 7-Eleven or the corner store and you get a couple of 4-packs of Red Bull and you just sit there with your textbook and you start highlighting everything. Everything starts turning that highlighter color. Sometimes it works, right? You cram through the night till about 8 a.m., you get there, you take the test, and you do okay for the most part. You did what you needed to do, right? You come home, you pass out, and you finally get some sleep. What happens the next day, though? What happens to the information? It's all gone, right? You forgot it all. So, sometimes, even though we expect our learning to be fun and interactive and engaging, correct? Then why are we sitting there with a highlighter just kind of looking at the words? We don't really make it fun for ourselves to learn, right? I'm not saying all of you, but some of you, some of you don't really make it fun. You just sit there and study. So sometimes one of the best ways to access those parts is to make it playful, to make it fun when you're there one-on-one with your information too, okay? So don't cheat yourself out of that. It's important. Because we can sit here and show you videos all day and make it fun, engageful, and humorous, I guess you can say. Do you do that for yourself? Okay? Do you find creative ways? You guys are all very creative people, but do you find creative ways to internalize information? I hope this allows you to start doing that if you haven't thought of that. So, or forgot to do it or stopped doing that. Okay? That's amazing. That's awesome, Jesse. That's great. So, it's important to internalize all this information because in the industries that you guys are all going into, it's not about the grade you got on the test, right? You guys aren't going into industries that are like that. It's about your skills and what you can produce and what you can create and what you can actually do when you get there, right? So when you're on set or working in the studio, there's no time for what's the multiple choice on this. You just need to know how it works. That's why it's important to have these things and have information internalized and enter your long-term memory. So it's not just about learning to get the right answer. It's learning for, true understanding. So one of the best ways to really learn information is to try to teach it to yourself. How many of you guys do that? I know firsthand that this method works. That's why I love study groups, and that's why we're really big in this class on application, concept application. You're going to hear us say that a lot. Apply, 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 concept application. You didn't apply. We're going to say that a lot. Or how are you going to apply this in your life, et cetera, et cetera. We say that all over the place. And the reason we do that is because if you think about it, if you tell us how you're going to apply it in your life, you're kind of teaching it, right? If you go and share what you're learning with others, especially those that support your dream of why you're here, tell them what you're learning. Teach it to them. That shows that it's sticking into your long-term memory. And that's why we do that all the time. Andy, have you ever seen the 35-year-olds play basketball at the gym? So they're hogging up the court all the time. So anyway, you guys are funny. All right. So I believe in teaching others. I think it's helpful, and it does help you internalize that information. Any Big Bang Theory fans in the room? They talk about Richard Feynman, who's an actual real physicist. I know you guys know this. There's a fantastic physicist named Richard Feynman. He's brilliant, and what he would do if he wanted to learn something is that he needed to teach it, okay? He would try to take a very complex subject, like theoretical physics, and he would try to make the information fit onto a piece of paper, on one page fit it all on one page. And he would try to see if he can teach whatever it was to your normal, everyday person having a cup of coffee, okay? So that's one of the best ways to do it as well. Use stories, try to teach it to yourself, involve your senses, and most importantly, make it fun. Again, you guys are super creative. I hope that translates into your own stuff. Okay, not just you affecting the world and sharing your love for stuff with everybody else, but do it for you. So do apply it to yourself. So that's all I have for this lecture or for this topic, because we're going to move on to the next one soon. But what you are looking at in front of you is the 12 brain rules, all 12 of them that are scattered throughout your reading, and those highlighted in the yellowish color are the ones that we talked about today. Survival, which is our brains have changed over time. Exercise, we all know it boosts your brain power. So if you're stuck, you're in a rut, don't look at exercise. If you dread exercise right now, don't look at it as something that's for physical fitness and benefit and all that other stuff that everyone's talking about at the beginning of the year. Look at it as it's going to boost your brain power. So do something, short burst of whatever it is, facial exercises, jumping jacks, running, standing still, or whatever it is. It's just something to get your boost and then come back at it. Okay? So exercise boosts your brain power. Wiring, which is neuroplasticity. Attention, we don't pay attention to boring things. So don't make it boring for yourself. Sensory integration. The more senses you can integrate into your learning, the better chance you have of holding on to that information, okay? So again, right in front of you, these are all the 12 brain rules. And again, as Dr. John Medina talks about, these are all proven of why these are important, okay, for your brain. So sleep is on there, stress is on there, music is on there. It's wonderful. So if you ever want to read his book, add it to your book list. Let me go to his stuff. Right there's 12 brain rules, 12 principles for surviving and thriving at home, work, and school by Dr. John Medina. For those of you who have little ones, he makes a brain rules for baby. It's an amazing book. It covers babies 0 to 5, what their rules are. Learn some good stuff in there. If you don't have kids, but it's still just, if you're just fascinated by brain development, like I am, go ahead and read it. I read it before I even had kids, or a kid. All right. So that's that stuff. What I'm going to do right now, it's already almost 3:10. I'm going to take a quick pause on the archive, and I'm going to switch some gears. You guys can take a little break for a second and come back at about 2 minutes, 3 minutes, and we're going to go ahead and get started, okay? So I'm going to put a pause on this, and I'll put up a new slide because I need you guys to do something before we get started. It's going to be on the slide, all right? All right, sit tight. All right, you guys, are you all ready to get started? Okay, so in front of you on your slide, you will see that you will need something to write with and a piece of paper, or basically something to write with and something to write on. We're going to do about 2 different activities this time around. Nothing big deal. So it could be scrap, piece of paper, it could be whatever, doodle, something like that, okay? So get your something to write with, something to write on, and have that ready, because the first activity is going to be not too far away. All right, so this hour, I'm going to try to keep it by 4 o'clock. Okay, so this hour, we are going to be talking about positive psychology, and this session is going to be a little bit different. Sorry, I got caught up in what Rachel is saying. Okay. Rachel, it's okay. You can do it later on if you want to. It's just a little activity, and the other activity is just going to be making a list. You can do a mental list. It's totally fine. But you'll see it later on. Okay. So this hour is a little different than the last hour. I don't have any fun nostalgic videos to show you. It's more of me talking a lot. I know I was talking a lot the last one, but I know we had breaks with videos and games and stuff like that. But this one is more of me talking. It's more reflective, I guess you can say. What I'm going to do is I'm going to say a lot of things, pose a lot of little rhetorical questions, or not even rhetorical, but I guess things for you to think about. You can share whatever your thoughts are in the chat box, or just contemplate it on your own. But this is more of a session to get you thinking. Here's the information we present to you. See how you include it in your life. Don't include it in your life. Do you want to include it in your life, kind of thing. And my hope is that you do want to do this, or you are doing this, and see how you can kick it up a notch or include it in your weekly plan, which I'm going to tell you guys later on. And that's what this is about. Okay, so I'm going to pose some questions at you. Put it in the chat box if you want to, stuff like that. So that's what we're going to do. And we have 2 little activities, okay? All right. So during the session, we're going to talk about positive psychology and well-being theory. So let's see. Okay. So positive psychology is really all about looking at things differently. Okay, maybe even starting to change our perspective. Okay, so let's start with an activity to get us thinking about this kind of thing. And it's an activity that Sean Aker, that's my next name drop, Sean Aker does in his book, Before Happiness. So if you've done this activity before, or you've seen this before, don't tell anyone or spoil it for everyone else, okay? And Rachel, I'll try to describe it because I know everyone's looking at it. I'll try to describe it so if you're busy moving around doing physical things, then you can hear what we're saying. Okay, so what I want you guys to do is duplicate these 9 dots on your sheet of paper. They can just be dots. They don't have to be these big circles. I only enlarge the circles for emphasis, but it could just be dots, okay? So duplicate these 9 dots on your sheet of paper. Let me know when you guys are ready, because then I'll give you the directions. Okay. All right. You guys ready? Okay. Without picking up your pen, draw 4 straight lines that go through all 9 dots only once. Without picking up your pen, draw 4 straight lines that go through all 9 dots only once. I'll give you guys about a minute to do this. All right. Jesse thinks we got all right, Ryan, I'll say it again, just in case. Without picking up your pen, draw 4 straight lines that go through all 9 dots only once. All right, I have Jesse, Albert. Y'all think you got it? Or who? All right, you guys ready for the answer? Ryan? I know you might have got a little late start, but you don't have to look at the screen yet if you don't want to. All right, you want to see the answer? Or one of the answers? Okay. Did anyone get it? Or a version of it? No? So what happened? For those of us that didn't get it. Jesse, you said yours was star-shaped, but did you still do it 4 straight lines that went through all 9 dots once? Very cool. Ryan got it. Cool. All right, so for those of us that didn't get it, what happened? What happened Why weren't we able to see it? Why weren't we able to get it for those of us that didn't? Where did we err? I'm glad that Jesse and Ryan, you guys say that, because I don't think this was the only way to do it, but this is just one way. Brian says he tried to stay within the dots. Yeah. And what happened is that as soon as you saw these dots, even though I praised the brain a second ago or last hour, it's a really tricky thing up there, right? As soon as we saw these dots, right? Oops. As soon as we saw these dots, your brain immediately registered the word and the concept square, right? Is that what everyone saw? You saw a box? You saw a square? I mean, I admit I did too. So your brain actually defined boundaries that in reality do not exist. All right? No one told you that you couldn't go outside the box. No one told you that you couldn't go outside of that square. But your brain created that boundary. Your brain created that blind spot outside of the square. And we didn't even see that area that like the other two did, or the other ones that got it as well. You didn't even know it was possible. But again, no one said that we couldn't go outside of that box or outside of the grid, right? It's crazy. Our brain plays tricks on us, even though I was praising it last hour. And this is what happens to us every day, okay? Our brains create rules for reality that we do not think we can break. All right? So this is really the gist of what we're going to be talking about today and what Sean Aker talks about in his books. So we created those realities, right? And if we created them, then we can break them, correct? We can change them. We can change our perceptions. We talked about this last hour. Neuroplasticity, Henry David Thoreau quote, right? So, again, a little intro into what we're talking about today. So let's go ahead and get started at the beginning, okay? General psychology, I know it says traditional, but general psychology versus positive psychology. Let's begin with the differences of both, okay? Whether you've completed the reading yet or not, you guys tell me. What do you think the differences are between the two? Psychology in general, from what you knew before taking this class, from what you assumed psychology was all about. What do you think the differences are? General psychology, positive psychology. It could be assumptions. It could just be what you see media talking about it or movies talking about it. Positive psychology or ways to enhance life. Yes, positive psychology helps reinforce the brain to learn new things. Traditional is just knowing things. On point. What else? What about the stereotypical what psychology is? What you see. I hardly ever get that, though. That's what's surprising to me. The whole seeing a shrink and sitting on the couch and just talking about. Most people think psychology is just there, but yeah, they do. You want to try again, Jesse? Okay, you want to try a third time? I'm kidding. That's okay. I'm just joking with you. Okay. But general psychology, it basically focuses, honestly, psych major here, it focuses on misery and pathology. Or what's wrong, correct? It focuses on those type of things. Let's fix what's broken. Well, there's a need for that as well. I mean, positive psychology focuses on what's right, our personal strengths, and increasing well-being. And that's what I love about it, okay? So when I hear positive psychology, we could think, I don't know what a lot of y'all's initial reaction was when you heard positive psychology, but some people automatically think, happy, smiling face. Did someone say unicorn? Did I just see unicorn somewhere? Or am I making that up? I do see unicorn. Total tangent. I thought I saw the word unicorn. Okay. Basically, yeah, happy, smiling faces. However, Dr. Martin Seligman, who's credited as a father of positive psychology, University of Pennsylvania, he confessed that he detests the word happy because it has been thrown around so much that it has become almost meaningless, correct? Positive psychology means more than just being happy or smiling, and it's definitely not pretending like everything is merry and joyful when it is not, all right? I'm not a pessimist. I'm a realist. Has anyone said this before? I'm not a pessimist. I'm a realist. My husband likes to say this to me, or he used to. I'm kind of switching him over to my side, He used to try to say this to me when I would try to tell him to have a more positive outlook on a situation. And again, he probably sees me as sunshine and rainbows, again, like how people would see what positive psychology is about. But he's slowly coming over to my side, that it's not all sunshine and rainbows, and that's not what I mean. So in fact, Dr. Seligman confesses that he's a pessimist at heart, right? Crazy, right? That the father of this movement isn't just some happy-go-lucky kind of guy. He has said that he has had to work really hard on all the tools that are presented in positive psych for them to become habits, all right? And I love that he's honest about it, and it's empowering for someone to hear that because it just shows that we can change, right? That we can change our perceptions. Because it's not always easy. Life isn't always easy. There's a lot of, and you guys know this, I don't need to tell you about this. But it's not like there's always sunshine, rainbows, and unicorns everywhere. But there's a different way of looking at things, and that's the whole point. Okay? So it's a lot more than seeing your glass half full or half empty. You guys have heard that saying before, correct? You know the old saying, are you a pessimist or optimist? Do you see your glass half empty or are you a half full kind of person? And that just makes me kind of like gag, right? Like, what? So, honestly, it's the same thing how sunshine and rainbows, okay? It's honestly, it's not even about that, okay? It's about seeing the picture that's right in front of you to fill your glass back up, okay? Both optimists and pessimists are so focused on how to interpret that single glass in front of them that they miss the fact that there's a third equally true reality, a pitcher of water on the table to refill the glass. Okay? It doesn't matter how you see it. Honestly, it really doesn't matter. You're looking beyond that. You're looking outside of the box. Doesn't matter how you got there. You're looking to see how you can fill it back up. And that's what it's all about. Okay? So one of people's favorite things to say to me when I bring up positive psychology is, I'm not a pessimist, I'm a realist. I just smile, of course, because I know that understanding the true nature of positive psychology is very much grounded in reality. Okay? So, in Martin Seligman's book, Flourish, he says this: positive mental health is a presence, okay? The presence of positive emotion, the presence of engagement, the presence of meaning, the presence of good relationships, the presence of accomplishment, and being in a state of mental health is not merely being disorder-free, rather it's the presence of flourishing. So, and that's the main difference between traditional psychology and positive psychology, okay? Traditional psychology focuses on just on making you feel disorder-free. Again, there is much validity in that, of course, but Seligman's focus is on propelling you to the next level, which is what he calls flourishing, okay? Exactly, Francisco, PERMA, which we're going to talk about later on. So it's almost like a lot of back then, or even still today, we focus on, I say we in terms of psychology and things like that, we focus on making you disorder free or helping individuals reach a certain level of functioning, which is wonderful, right? But what about those individuals that are functioning and they're not, like everyday people, like let's just say me, you, I mean, we're here, we're in school, we have a level of functioning where we are walking around doing things, getting stuff done, right? You don't necessarily need a therapist, so to speak. And that's what he talks about is like, what about those people that are really killing it, like really like flourishing? How do we do what they do? What can we do as, let's just say, ordinary individuals, okay? Right, Tiffany. Thriving, not just surviving. So how do we thrive? And I think that's why he loves that word flourishing. So, oh, I wouldn't. I don't, Jesse. I was just trying to be, I was getting on a subject that I don't really want to go down that road. So let's change the subject. But anyway, right. So that's kind of what Seligman is talking about, is like how to thrive. So what can we do to thrive, no matter where we are in life, right? Okay. Let's move on. I'll be happy when. What do you think most responses would be to the statement? What do you think most people tend to automatically say? I'll be happy when what? Debt-free? That's a good one. I've reached my goals. I'm dead. A lot of people say that. When I win the lottery, when I have my dream job, when I'm skinny. Right. Does that mean, okay, well, if we stop and think about it, what might some of our responses be to this question or to this statement? If you really stop and think about it, I'll be happy when what? Doesn't imply that you're not now. Free of sadness. Yeah, I get that. Free in general. Yeah, I get that too. Achieve my life goals. When you can travel. Right. So the truth is, while these things, because some people would automatically tell me, they'll be happy when they're rich, they're successful, they have the famous job that they want, or they're famous, stuff like that. That's all stuff that's a long ways from now, sort of, for most, right? So again, does that imply that they're not happy now? Don't you wish those individuals were happy now? Right? Or whatever their definition of happy is. Some people would say, if they really stopped and thought about it, that I'll be happy when, they would say, when I get to get home today, or when I get to eat, or when I have my favorite cup of coffee, or when I get to see my kids, or when I get to go to my son's baseball game, stuff like that. When I save money for a car, when I get to go see my loved one. Right, Courtney. When you get to go stream, when you get to not do this right now, and you get to go play, right? So things that are more immediate, things that are more in the not so distant future, right? Right. So the truth is that while these things, money, getting the job you want, all that fun stuff, may give us a sense of happiness for a brief period, the feeling doesn't last. So let's just say you did get the job you wanted, or you had all the money in the world. Would you be happy? And you had nothing to worry about. All your debt was paid. Yeah, you're happy. Then you're on to the next best thing, right? What's next? Briefly, right, Tyler? So there's a good TED Talks in your reading this week by Sean Aker, and I love him. I love his video because now, once you hear him speak, he speaks really fast, and he's intelligent, he's smart, and he's funny. He has a little bit of humor to him, and that's what I love about it. But I don't know who said it last lecture about when they said, oddly enough, that they imagine instructors teaching them a subject, and that's how they learn better. Something like that. Somebody said something like that, and this what I'm about to tell you reminded me of this part where once I hear an author speak or I hear their voice, I read their books in their voice. Does that make sense? Like when I'm reading their books, I read it. I hear it. I hear them reading that book to me. I hear them speaking to me, I guess you can say, and that's what helps me. So now there's a good video. The reason I'm bringing that up because you have to watch this video. So there's a video about Sean Aker, and he talks about the happiness advantage and how we have this whole equation backwards. He says that when you reach your goals, you just make a new goal, which I'll talk about that later. So what he says is that when you reach your goals, you just make a new goal. So how do you know when you are finally successful? Okay? How do you know when to be happy with what you've achieved? So the key is to be happy first, then success seems to follow. Because we can retrain our brains to be successful with positivity, we open up ourselves to be more productive, more creative, and see more possibilities. And that's what he says. Do you guys agree with that, or what do you think about that? Be happy first, and then success seems to follow. And again, he says that when we reach our goals, we just make a new goal, which I don't think there's anything wrong with that. Of course, you make a new goal, you reach your goal, you're going to make another one, right? But I think the point is, do you savor that? Do you celebrate those goals, right? Are you happy and content with them, and then you just make another one? Yeah. And what I love about this part is that to be happy first, then success seems to follow. And he says that we retrain our brains to be successful with positivity, and we open ourselves to be more productive, more creative, and see more possibilities. I'm going to talk about that later on as well, but there's a theory called the broaden and build theory by Dr. Barbara Fredrickson. And what she says is that if you have a positive outlook or you are in a positive space, you tend to scan the world differently. And this is where they're talking about. You scan the world differently than if you were in a negative space. So imagine, I know we've all had hard days or a negative day, whatever that caused it. We tend to not look at the world positive. Like we might not interact with individuals in a positive way. We might ignore individuals. We just want to get through the day, go home, and just do what we do when we're sad, right? Sulk, just be quiet, not interact with individuals. So that's us not scanning the world, okay? So on the flip side of that, if you're in a positive space, have a positive outlook, you scan the world with positivity, you're able to see opportunities, in front of you, you're able to take advantage of those opportunities in front of you. You're more creative and more productive. It's almost like you just walk through that door, right? So that's kind of what they're saying. If you're in a positive space, you tend to see the world differently. And that's kind of how success seems to, what he means by if you're happy first, success seems to follow because you take advantage of those creative opportunities or you see them in front of you. So I guess that's what they're getting at instead of having a negative space all the time. So that I can see what they mean by that. Because sometimes you just, like I said, you don't interact with individuals and an opportunity could have just passed you by and you didn't even know it. You're not scanning the world for that. Okay. All right, so where am I? All right, let's go on to the next one. All right, this is always a hot topic. Does money make you happy? Brian says no. Amanda says yes. Jesse says sort of. I got all three. I got all three. Tiffany, I love it. No, it doesn't make you happy, but it helps. Or, no, money doesn't make us happy, but it allows us or affords us the things that do make us happy, right? It allows us to do the things that we want to do, or gives us the freedom to do the things that bring us joy, right? So a lot of people, see, if you stop and think about it, that's what it does. It doesn't, but immediately some people say, of course, yes, and then it's a short-lived kind of feeling. It's a temporary feeling. It's fleeting. Albert said he'd rather be a depressed millionaire. Huh, I don't know what that's like. What does that look like? Maybe they're all depressed. I don't even know if they're happy. You never know what it looks like for somebody on the inside, right? I wouldn't say that I'm happy because I have money, but because I no longer. Exactly. Yeah. And I'm glad you say that because where do I talk about that? Again, I'm trying not to jump ahead, but basically research says that, right here. Research shows that once your basic needs are accounted for, money doesn't make you happier. You're right on, Francisco. Right, once you have everything taken care of, money doesn't make you happier. It doesn't. The things that money can't buy, I guess you say, or the things that matter to you is what we're going to talk about later on, which is within the confines of the PERMA model. So, all right. And yes, that is very true, what Ricky says. It reduces stress and it can cause stress. So, okay. Have you guys ever heard of this, the hedonic treadmill? When you're on campus, this is a Jeopardy question. So we don't play Jeopardy in this class online, but this is a Jeopardy question. The hedonic treadmill is basically the idea that we adapt to good things and take them for granted. Okay, I know I've done that. You accumulate more material possessions and accomplishments. As you accumulate more material possessions and accomplishments, your expectations rise. So the things you worked so hard for no longer make you happy, and you want more, right? So what is something that we've done that to? New car. You work so hard for this new car or newer car. You park it away from everybody else. You don't let anybody eat in it and things like that. Then all of a sudden, you start taking it for granted. Somebody asked me what the question was, and basically the hedonic treadmill is that we adapt to good things and we take them for granted. Okay? So what is something that we've done that to? As you accumulate more material possessions and accomplishments, your expectations rise, and then the things that you work so hard for now don't make you happy anymore. We do that to our, the new phones. We do that to new things. We want it so bad, we work for it so hard, and then all of a sudden we get it, then we don't care about it anymore. We take it for granted. Our cell phones, our new cars, video games, right? Yeah, Jesse said that, video games. We do that all the time. And as soon as that comes out, or the phone, then they advertise that the next phone's coming out, and we're ready to, we just spent this much money on this phone, and we can't wait for the next one. We're crazy like that, right? So we're so happy to get it, and we're so excited, and we begin to take it for granted, and then we're on to the next best thing. So when are we gonna finally stop and just be happy? And who knows? Again, these are just things I'm throwing out at you. So, according to Seligman, since money, success, and fame isn't going to bring us well-being, let's focus on something that will. Because again, these are just things, right? But again, if you had all the money in the world, you had all the stuff in the world, what's left? Are you going to be happy? Who knows? You have to find the things that matter to you, right? And that's what he talks about, well-being. We have to find the things that matter to us, that pushes us, that motivates us. So, Seligman says there are 3 states of mental health. We have languishing, ordinary, and flourishing. Okay, languishing is not really feeling anything. Okay, it's kind of like blah. That's what I call that. So this is what he says. These are 3 states of mental health. Okay, we have ordinary, which is just going through the motions, kind of like on autopilot, right? And then we have flourishing, which is kind of what I wanted to touch on earlier, and that's feeling complete and content, like you have a purpose. And notice that happy and smiling is not in the definition. So his well-being theory is based on increasing flourishing by using what he calls PERMA. One of you guys mentioned PERMA earlier. Okay, so PERMA is an acronym for positive emotion, engagement, relationships, meaning, and achievement. And we're going to talk about each one. So this part is where I'm going to go through each one, pose some questions at you, see how often you engage in these things, how often you apply this specific element in your life. You might do it a lot. And that's fantastic, but maybe you find that you're not doing one of the other ones that I mentioned and described, and you might want to start doing that a little more. Because again, this is how you can increase your well-being overall, okay? So positive emotion, okay? This includes general happiness or life satisfaction, and really enjoying the here and the now. How often do we do that? Do you enjoy the here and the now, or are you always in the past? Are you always in the future? Or are you always on your cell phone? Are you here present, being present with the person or whoever's in front of you at the moment, right? The here and the now. Not prolonging happiness until some goal is achieved, as we kind of discussed earlier. So Barbara Fredrickson, she coined 10 positive emotions, and happy isn't one of them. Okay? How many do you think you can name? What's a positive emotion? There's 10 of them. Excellent, Albert. Joy is one. Love is another one. I think excitement's one, or they call it something. Laughter. Peace. Peace is one. I mean, she names it something different, but peace is good. Contentment. And I'll take one more before I show you the 10. Relaxed. And that's worded something else too. So here they are. We have joy, gratitude, serenity is probably peace or relaxation, right? Interest, hope, pride, amusement could be laughter, inspiration, awe, and love. Those are the 10 positive emotions. So Fredrickson says that these positive emotions, they open us up, they broaden our minds, and allow us to see other possibilities. And that's kind of what I touched on earlier when I was mentioning Sean Aker about how you scan the world. Okay, so how often do you engage in these emotions, right? What brings you joy? Think of a time that brought you overwhelming joy. And when was the last time you felt grateful? When was the last time you laughed? Right? How often do you do these things? Okay? And I know we talk about joy a lot, and I know that Brandy mentioned last week that joy to us, or to me and her, because we kind of are on the same page about this, joy to us is play. So the things that bring us joy could be what we synonymously say with play. Okay? Food, family, love food, coffee. So, yeah. Excellent. All right, the next one, and a lot of you guys love this one too, is engagement. And that is interest, which is a positive emotion. Concentrating so intently on something and getting lost in your activities. Okay? The state of flow, which we talk about in our reading. It's just I don't talk about it in this lecture because I think flow can have its own hour lecture, right? So when was the last time interest really drew you into the moment? Okay, again, interest is a positive emotion. So when was the last time you got lost in your activities? How often do you make time for that? Okay, so again, if you don't have, even if you had all the money in the world and all these things, are you still doing, do you get lost in your activities? So, do you feel positive emotions? Okay. So again, when was the last time interest really drew you in to the moment? When did time stop for you? Were you completely absorbed by the task? And the reason I ask these things is because routine can cause boredom and automatic habitual behaviors. We kind of go on autopilot. So variety and changing up things is important for keeping away that hedonic adaptation. Okay. All right, next we have relationships, positive relationships. We are social beings, as we talked about last week. Do you have close relationships and people in your life who care about you and support you? Humans are social beings, and we crave these relationships. So Seligman believes that very little that is positive is solitary. Okay. When was the last time you laughed hysterically? When was the last time you felt overwhelming joy? The last time you felt like you were at a high point in your life, right? Were you alone, or did these moments involve others? Okay? He suggests that most of our positive experiences are with or are around people. Okay? So think of someone you feel really attached to. How do you feel when you're with that person? How often do you make time for that person? I guess that's the kicker there, because we are all so busy. Do you express your appreciation for these relationships? So maybe this could be something that you add to your plan this week. Call that important person up, make coffee time, or grab a bite to eat with them. Doesn't have to be, a long drawn out whole day, because, again, we're all super busy, but we need to make time for the people that are important to us, or at least a phone call. So add that to your plan if you need to. All right, next we have meaning or purpose in life, right? With purpose being defined as the intention to contribute to the well-being of others, okay? At its core is that what we do matters to people other than ourselves. Is what we do matter to other people other than ourselves? Do you feel what you do in life is valuable and worthwhile? Okay? Do you know what your purpose is? And you guys might find out that you're not entirely sure, and that's okay too. I think our purpose can change and adapt as we go through life. I mean, my purpose is different now than when I was first starting at college. And while you might not have all the answers, it's important to at least begin thinking about meaning and what you do. Okay? So give me some examples of what inspires you. And inspiration is a positive emotion. So, all right. And last but not least, we have achievement, which could also be called accomplishment or mastery of something. And we strive to improve, we achieve our goals, and resilience. Resilience is a big part of this. How do you handle setbacks and obstacles? Okay, do you let challenges derail you, or do you keep going? What makes you proud? Pride is a positive emotion. And what has pride inspired you to do? What is success to you? So I know we talked earlier, we talked about this earlier, that we're always making new goals because of that hedonic treadmill. And that's why it's so important to understand what success looks like to you. I used to always ask this when I would see clients, and that is whenever they would wish for something or want their life to be a certain way, I asked them what does it look like? If you don't know what it looks like, because success is different for everybody, just like happiness is different for everybody. What does it look like to you? So then you know that when you're there, you can identify it. You know you've reached that point where you are successful based on your own vision and interpretation of it. So what does success look like to you? If you don't know what you're looking for, how you know when you get there? And that's kind of what Shawn Achor talks about as well. So write it down somewhere. I know we always talk about this stuff no matter what time of the year it is. It doesn't always have to be January. I know it just seems to be like, because everyone's always trying to make the new year the year they're going to do stuff with resolutions and things like that. But this could be an ongoing thing. It doesn't always have to be a January 1st kind of thing. So it said that the more you cultivate or develop these 5 elements, the more you are said to lead a flourishing life. So no one element defines well-being, but each contributes to it, and each one can be built upon or increased, okay? So 2 things that I wanted to mention from this class. I know there's a lot of good stuff coming up in terms of the other 2 weeks, but so far, if you were to have 2 takeaways from this class, I would say it would be the importance of play as an adult. I hope you guys understand how important that is for you now, and that it's not just a waste of time, and that you do need to make time for yourself to enjoy things and to play and do things that bring you joy. That's one takeaway. The second thing is PERMA. So if anything at all, I hope you walk away with this, with PERMA, that whenever something is not quite right, engage in one of these things. Maybe you need to do one of these things, and that will help you get a jump start. Okay, whether you had a bad day, a fight, whatever it is, something's just off. Maybe you need to get lost in your activities. Maybe you need to experience a positive emotion, whether that's laughter, or maybe even though you probably just want to be alone, maybe you need to be around somebody that supports you and cares about your dream. So just any one of those things. Play as an adult and PERMA. Okay? Those are the 2 things that I hope you walk away with this class, besides all the other cool and interesting stuff you're going to learn the rest of the time you're here with us. So now you guys might say, well, duh, Miss Jen, of course, if you feel good, have close relationships, are actively engaged in life, and have a sense of purpose, you're going to be a happy, flourishing person. No duh. But how many people actually remember and act on these things or these elements on a daily basis? I know that's the hard part, okay? But here I'll say this. All right, common sense is not common action. And Sean Akers said that as well. It's one thing to know these things and another to practice them on a daily basis in life. So it's easier to ignore these things and forget about them when it's convenient, right? I always hear that I'll start tomorrow, but new habits take practice. So, told you we love Sean Aker. Excuse me. Before happiness and success comes your perception of your world. So before we can be happy and successful, we need to create a positive reality that allows us to see the possibility for both. And that kind of goes along with what I was mentioning to you earlier about scanning the world. Okay? So your reality is a choice, and what you choose to focus on shapes how you perceive and interpret your world. So basically, Sean Aker is saying that you have a choice, and that kind of goes back to that 9 dots thing. Okay? So let's put that idea into practice, and we're going to do our second activity, and that is this. All right, so I have that piece of paper out with you, and what I want you guys to do is you can either do it in the chat box if you want to, or you can just do it on that scrap piece of paper. I think it was Rachel that's moving around right now and just listening. Can't really write stuff, but you can make a mental list if you want to, okay? What I want you guys to do is you can do it in the chat box again, but what I want you to keep track of what you are writing, okay? If you're going to do it in the chat box, okay? All right, so we're going to put this idea into practice of what I mean by that, and that is, see the word in front of you? I want you to write as many descriptors, phrases, and labels that you can think of for describing homework. Ignore grammar and go for speed. Write as many descriptors, phrases, and labels that you can think of for describing homework. All right, I'll give you some time to do that. All right, start wrapping up your list. And pencil is down. Okay, you guys ready? How many words do you have? Who has the highest number? Albert has 7. Teaching learner 7 Francisco, 5 Amanda, 7, 7, 8. Jesse has 8. Okay, so about the 7, 8. We're all about in the same ballpark for the time I gave you. Okay, now let's score them. Okay, probably like, let's score. We always like to keep score. I'm kidding. So for every positive descriptor, give yourself 3 points, and for every negative descriptor, give yourself 1 point. Courtney has 10. All right, now how many points do you have? Albert has 12. Eight. What's the points for equal and for good and bad again? Okay, so 3 points for every positive descriptor you said or listed down, and 1 point for every negative descriptor, and then add up your points. Tiffany has 17. I think that's the highest number so far. 14. All right. 18. Jesse, you had 7, right? Or 8? Now you have 18? Perfect. Courtney, you have 23. Okay. All right, so you guys are looking at your points, and you're probably wondering, why in the world would you get points for the negative? Why didn't I just give you a 0, right? So it's all about balance. So awareness of negatives can motivate us to take action, okay? So the act of looking for them can help make our brains more flexible. So we're able to learn and grow from those negatives. That's why you didn't just get a 0 for that. You got a 1, because you have to scan and you have to actually actively look for the negatives, okay? This is a good activity to use as a starting point to kind of see where your own perceptions lie, okay? Do your positives outweigh your negative descriptors that you wrote? I mean, this was just the word homework. You can do this with anything, all right? So we want to know your perceptions on something, list it, go for speed, don't worry about grammar, just list as many things as you can, and then score yourself afterward. Give yourself 3 points for positive descriptors, give yourself 1 for a negative descriptor, and see, do your positives outweigh your negatives, okay? All right, there's a reason though, also why it's a 3 to 1, okay? So what Barbara Fredrickson says is that we naturally dwell on negatives. Our brains, that fantastic thing, our brains give more weight to the negatives, okay? And it takes more positives to balance that out, all right? So our brains, as you can see, now are naturally wired to seek and find negatives, okay? So since we naturally dwell on negatives and give more weight to negatives, it takes more positives to balance them out. And that's where she comes up with this 3 to 1 ratio, okay? She calls this a positivity ratio. So this is the ratio that you need of positive experiences to negative experiences to lead a flourishing life. So, for example, if something negative happens or whatever, you need 3 positive things to happen to that one negative thing. So if you get I like to always use arguments or disagreements with significant others or people that you care about and things like that. So you're always wondering why a sorry isn't good enough and why you always have to maybe do a sorry, clean the house, and maybe go out to dinner because that one thing that you do doesn't equal, it never translates well. You always have to do more positive things to make up for that one spat, right? I know we all can relate to that in some sense, whether it's your significant other, family member, whatever, right? It's never a sorry for a sorry. Never. No matter what side you're on, it's never like that. Interesting enough, Dr. John Gottman, who has spent his career focusing on couples therapy and relationships and things like that, he took Dr. Barbara Fredrickson's ratio of 3 to 1, and he applied it to his studies and his work with working with couples. And I know I just gave you a example of using a couple or using intimate relationships and things like that. But since he's the expert on it, he says that the ratio in intimate relationships is actually 5-1. So for example, if you get in a spat or something happens, you need 5 positive things need to happen to make up for that one negative thing. And Sarah says she can believe that. Yeah. Yeah, but in general, with anything else, if it doesn't have to be your relational thing. So it could just be school, work, whatever. Flat tire, made you late for work, anything negative, a negative experience. 3 positive things have to happen to kind of get you to balance out again, to kind of get you over that hump or whatever that is, and then just keep on moving. So, yeah, that's all I ask for, Albert. I mean, that's fantastic. Again, all this stuff I'm talking about is like, well, duh. It's all just a big, not that, this is not like something that's mind blowing or anything. It's just hard to remember to do it. Again, habits take, these things take practice in order for them to become a habit. Common sense isn't common action, as Stone Niker says. So, it's a struggle. And that's what I love about how Dr. Martin Seligman says, you know what? I'm a pessimist, but I've had to work really hard on these things to try to lead a flourishing life, because it is a struggle. It's a lot. But again, if you do it consistently enough, it can start to become a habit, and I can attest to some of that. Some of the things just start to happen. You just start to think that way. And in week 4, I don't get the pleasure of talking to you guys in week 4, but we talk about this one method that I love. It's called the ABCDE method, and it talks about how to thought stop and like change your perceptions. It's an actual tool to tell you how to, hey, look at a situation. Do they really think that way? Let me back up and think about how it could possibly be another way. So anyway, in week 4, we talk about that. But sooner or later, if you do that enough, it automatically just starts to happen. Your brain just automatically starts to do it on its own. So, yeah. So I'll leave you with this today, with the last question for you guys to ponder on the upcoming days, and that is, what will you do to boost your ratio to achieve your own tipping point? And tipping point meaning that you have tipped the scales into flourishing, okay? So for the takeaway today is that we're not all bad. Oftentimes, a lot of emphasis is placed on what's wrong, what's bad, what's broken. And again, there's validity in that. But positive psychology asks us to reflect on what's good. What am I doing right? I'm a strong person. How did I get here? What's working, and how can I do more of that to strengthen my life? And that's kind of where positive psychology is. So again, this week we have a lot of good stuff, a lot of tools that we present to you that you can start implementing in your life if you want to. We talk about character strengths. I love that one. There's a character strengths inventory that you can take to see what your top 5 strengths are and see how you implement those in your life. And even if you wanted to look at the ones on the bottom, again, they're all strengths of character. Maybe you want to work on some of those. Implement those into your plan. Implement those into your life. I'd love to hear about it. So anyway, that's all I have for you guys today. Thank you again for joining me for the last 2 hours. I hope you guys learned some good stuff, are interested in the brain, and want to start implementing a little bit. I mean, not talking about sunshine and rainbows, because again, I know it's hard. It really is. But maybe just one small thing. Try doing one thing. Maybe relationships is a big thing for me. So maybe just call somebody, Go talk to somebody. Call your friend. Go have a good... a lot of my students this past week on their discussion board talked about video gaming and how they like to have that relational aspect with their friends online, and that's how they socialize and things like that, and it makes feel connected. So go do that. Go have a good time, feel some positive emotions, get lost in your activities, and the PERMA. Those are my top 3: P, E, and R. Go be with people. So again, if you have any questions, always feel free to contact your instructor or myself. If you have any specific questions, you guys are more than welcome to talk to me, even though if I'm not your instructor. Just get my email, and I'd be more than happy to continue this conversation with you. Okay? Anyway, thank you for joining me. Have a good rest of the week, and you should expect to have updates from your grades in terms of last week's discussion boards from us throughout the week, but definitely by Thursday. Okay? Thank you again, and I will see you guys next time.